Hi guys! Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to point out two parts where the audio is choppy. I was recording away from home, so my mic was not the best. You'll hear it when we're discussing Tamlin, and again about 20 minutes before the episode finishes. My mic starts to cut in and out, and then miraculously fixes itself. With that being said, please enjoy episode 4 of SJ Masterclass.
Hi, guys. Welcome to SJ Masterclass, a podcast where two friends and avid readers are working to build an encyclopedia of the universe written by Sarah J. Maas. One series at a time, cross-referencing as we go through the text. We'll discuss themes, characters, plot points throughout the Maasverse and go wherever the conversation leads us. This week, we're reviewing chapters 16 through 20 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm Rev, one of your hosts. I'm an ER nurse, a knitter, a lifelong reader, and a dog mom.
Hi, I'm Cat. I'm also a reader. I'm also a knitter. I am a cat mom, and I'm also an ER nurse by day. Each episode, we're going to start with a brief review of the chapters that we're focusing on, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details. This podcast will be extremely spoiler heavy for both ACOTAR and potentially for S.J. Maas's other works, so listen at your own risks. Rev, do you want to get us into the chapter summary?
Yeah. So we're going chapter 16 through 20. Feyre learns that the Fae can lie. Big surprise. Tamlin tells her what he did for her family with glamoring their memories, giving them a warning to run at the first sign of a threat from Prythian. Feyre asks for paint. She and Tamlin make plans to go see the palace art gallery. Ooh la la. Feyre has a bad dream of a pale woman tearing at her throat and asking for her name. A fairy gets his wings ripped off by the often referenced mean and powerful female that they keep talking about, and then that fairy dies. Tamlin and Lucien and Feyre go to the Starlight Pond. Feyre learns about Lucien's history. Tamlin learns about Feyre's history. Feyre starts painting. Several weeks pass. Romance ensues in the gardens of the Spring Court between Feyre and Tamlin. Feyre learns a little bit more about Tamlin's history. Calanmai prep is underway, and we hear of an Ador for the first
I always
time.
say Ator, yeah.
Ator, that's what it looks like, yeah. And then Calanmai starts. Feyre sneaks out, and the most beautiful man she has ever seen saves her from 3 untoward fae. I'd like to get into the details, but real quick, Kat, before I let you get into the details, I just wanted to say this one thing. This section of the book has 3 big topics, I feel, that are explored in depth. First being character backstories, second being the blight, and the third big topic is the budding romance between Feyre and Tamlin. I feel like some of them overlap. I think that you're probably going to approach a lot of this content in the same way. Maybe not. I don't know. But also, I want to say we're definitely past, if we're talking about narrative structure, we have now definitely surpassed the first 25% of the book.
100%. I think we are now into the character arc. Now we know what Prythian is, and now we are into who are these characters. So I think a great way to start this would be to kind of continue the themes that we've looked at from the previous chapters, and let's talk about the identities that we learn about Lucien, Tamlin, and Feyre. Because who dog? There's a lot that happens for all 3 of our sweet babies in this.
The character backstories, that's the one I was going to start with. I knew we'd start on the same page. We always do.
Who do you want to talk about? Lucien, Feyre, or Tamlin?
I think that if we go chronologically, we start learning more about Lucien as the
He was
trio.
my
We
first.
start learning about. Oh, he was. Go, 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 go.
Here's the thing. We learn a lot about him, but we also don't learn about as much about him as we do the others. Obviously, because Feyre and Tamlin are the main characters. Now we have officially learned that he has been exiled from the Autumn Court. We learned that he had a love who was a lesser fae, and he knew that the mating bond would come up. Bing! I'm putting a pin in my own thing because we have the first reference to a mating bond.
I'll hold it up for you just so we have a
Because I
placeholder.
don't have it. I'm not at home, as you can see by my background. We learn that he has been exiled by his brothers. So two of them have, or three of them, chased him out of the Autumn Court. One of them is killed by Lucien, one of them is killed by Tamlin, and one of them gets home. So out of the 7 siblings, we have Eris, we have Lucien, 2 that are dead, we have 3 more. I cannot remember if they are named. We also learn that I think he's the first person to gift Feyre anything in this Fey land. He gives her the knife as an apology about the surreal. And I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about what we learn about him and what we learn about him in Tamlin. I want to hear about your thoughts of Lucien. And then I have a secondary question that I want to ask you after.
Do you not want to talk about your pen first about the mating bonds, or is that after?
We'll talk about that after because I have it written about 3 times in my notes because I think it relates to something else. It is foreshadowing, but let's talk about Lucien.
My stuff is not as separated, like character to character to character, but I will say that one thing that ties them all together that you've already addressed, there's lots of talk when we're learning about all 3 of these characters' back history, about lots of talk about death and killing. And like a lot of it is heavy, dark, emotional stuff, talking about Lucian's love of his life, and then more about Tamlin in the future, which I'll save till we're on Tamlin, more about Feyre in the future, and also Feyre current. But I would agree with you that there is some heavy stuff about the family killing the love of his life and then them
Oh,
going back, Tamlin and Lucien going back, and his dad killing this woman and his 2 older brothers holding him there and making him watch this death. And then he comes over to Tamlin and Tamlin's like, yeah, I got a lot of heavy, I was going to say a bad word. I have a lot of heavy stuff too in my history with some death and some
but
family
not
related
that.
stuff. And they go and they're like, we're going full. And they kill 2 of the Autumn Court, who, I mean, Autumn Court there's some seriously mean people. If you guys knock out 2 out of those 3 guys, you guys are kind of a powerhouse. It looks like you guys are going to be buds for life.
So this is what I wanted to bring up. It's something we talked about last week where we were talking about the relationships between Tamlin and Lucien. Like, why is Lucien able to say these super, not aggressive, but these more directed comments of, we need to be taking a stand against her. He talks back to Tamlin. We learn in these chapters the relationship that they have is not just, hey, we're besties. Hey, we've been friends since we were kids. This is, I've taken you in, but also you are the voice of my court. I see your pen, but you are the voice of my court. You are going to be the person who talks to the other courts because I can't. And Tamlin even says, I'm not comfortable talking to other people, but Lucien does that for me. Go for your pen.
One of the things, kind of referring to what you're talking to, is neither Tamlin nor Lucien were trained to be High Lords, right? So
Right?
now they are both together in Spring Court navigating this. Tamlin's the High Lord and I'm the emissary. Hold on, wait. We're both supposed to be able to talk to people and like be political, and like neither one of them are equipped with the tools to navigate down this road.
I wonder if Lucien is not the equivalent of the Asriel for the Spring Court, just not in the shadows.
Is this why you like him
We
so much?
maybe, maybe I'm not going to say no, but like, but Lucian or Tamlin says Lucien went to all of the courts. He became friends with everybody. And the best way to learn people's
Oh.
secrets is to be friends with them and to make them relax. Asriel hears it from the shadows, but Lucien is right there. He's not in the shadows, but he might be in their shadow, listening to them and being the one to be their confidant. I love that idea for him, but I also love what this means for his future because of what we know happens with him and what happens with the Spring Court. But it also breaks my heart because these two guys are just trying to make it work. But also, Tamlin's a POS. So go for your pin.
He is. I do also recognize that statement that you just said. They're just two guys who are moving forward, who are both like, this is not what I thought my life, this world was going to be like.
Mhm.
They have this connection over these similar experiences, not that they were shared at the time, but now they can talk to each other and befriend each other and be like, God, we're really a lot alike. And it creates this relationship between two people that may not be the healthiest people in the world. Maybe they don't cope the
Right.
best in the world, but it forms this bond that makes them so tight that they are ride or die for each other every day. They go to work
Right.
in the Spring Court trying to be representatives and trying to face this blight. It's them against the world, in that all the other High Lords can't even control their own courts, and they're together having to navigate, how do we defend this territory? And they get each other. We know where each other's coming from. Neither one of us are perfect, but we're going to support each other.
So, yes, because when I was writing in my notes, when we got to the Lucian part, I was writing trauma, trauma. This is, again, we dealt with this earlier with his eye, but this is now we have to deal with the trauma of Lucian losing his eye to her. And now he's losing the love of his life. Originally, I wanted us to go on to Feyre, but let's talk about Tamlin because his trauma is him becoming High Lord. And he says, fortunately or unfortunately, I am the High Lord. As in, he does not care that his father died. He does not care that his brothers died. The one he mourns is his mother, but he can't even fully mourn her because she was mated to his father. And even if she saw the horrible things that his father was doing, she wouldn't speak up against them because they were mated. His trauma is not, I don't feel like it's as visceral as Lucian. Lucian can say, I left my family, I left my blood for this. Hamlin says, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm the High Lord because of these things that happened, because another court came in. He doesn't even acknowledge at this point that that other court was coming in because of him and his father. What are your
So
thoughts?
I'm going to go back to one of my points that I had mentioned earlier. One of the biggest things that we hear about these character backstories, at least for Tamlin and Lucien, and the current shortened backstory for Feyre that she's kind of living through and what's happened over the past few weeks, is a lot of death.
Hmm.
There are important loved ones in each backstory, but then we see in one of these chapters how intensely he feels about the death of this fairy that comes in with his wings ripped off.
Yeah.
There's so much death. But then we
Hmm.
also hear about, there's the death of Andress, there's the death
Right.
of the Naga that he had to participate in. And
I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's not just the death of Andress and the Naga. Feyre did both of those deaths. She killed two of the Naga. She killed Andress.
And then, yes, this is why I'm saying it all bleeds so much into into each other, which is why I want to say that kind of at the beginning, that like there's these three big topics, but trying to separate them out is kind of hard. I did the best I could, but they're also overlapping. And then we talk about, Tamlin very specifically talks about the human and the Fey war. and how he was a kid, but he would have gone forward and he would have died to defend those humans and people that deserved help, and that how many other people he knew that were also friends with the humans, and how many Fae died defending the humans. And now here's this human who is Feyre, who hates all the Fae, killed one of their best friends, but then he has to try and bond with her and make her like him. And here I have to hate my dad because he was one of the fairies killing humans. But it's all so convoluted with him that he must feel like he is in a whirlpool that's spiraling around where he cannot figure out how he feels. And he's just getting closer and closer to the center where things are about to erupt because we're almost at 50 years. That's kind of my thoughts on Tamlin. Please go with your pen.
So this is actually, I have 4 theories for this one, 5 theories for this
Wow.
chapter chunk. Yeah, this was a lot. But one
It
of them
was.
is, do we think Tamlin is being honest when he says he would have sided with the humans had he been able to fight in the war? And here is the evidence that I think that this is worth discussing. On page 144, we know that he was a fighter/warrior in his father's army. And he says that his father would have had slaves and that he was training to do whatever his father or whoever took over the High Lord would have done. We know that later on in the series, he works with Hybern, who his father would have sided with and possibly did side with. And we know that he is constantly and consistently shocked by what the humans can do, by what she can do. Oh, I didn't realize humans would appreciate art. Oh, I thought you were just stupid things. Do we honestly believe that he would have sided with the humans with what we see from him? I don't think we would have. I think what he's doing is he's saying kind of that put awning of, yeah, I think this insert political movement is bad, but I'm not going to do anything to prove it against, and I actually kind of agree with a lot of it. I think the relationship is fake. That's one of my other theories. But it's interesting what he says. He says, "We never willingly lied to you," which means that they have lied to her, and that they probably will continue to lie to her, but not willingly. Go with your pen.
I have been pro idea that this relationship is fake from the get-go and that Lucien and Tamlin are lying to her the entire way. What I said about this being told from Feyre's perspective, this is from last episode, and
Mhm.
Lucien and Tamlin possibly are setting her up for Tamlin to save her from the Suriel. This is the one, I guess, out of 4, so not that many episodes that makes me rethink it is after I'm only trying to jump forward just to prove my point. Tamlin still ends up wanting to marry her after she's Fae and after the blight is broken, and he marries her. And does this go back to the first point that you made a long time ago, which was, this is mine. No one gets to play with her. She's mine. And so it's not really still a real investment of relationship and he's still faking? Or there's just like so many more points that also overlap into my other thing that is the Feyre and Tamlin romance that I could like jump into that where I have like pros and cons for each one, but we can just start here.
So I feel like I have an answer to this. I'm going to give you 2 points here. The first is on page 175, where Tamlin says, "I don't particularly like losing, so I took it upon myself to become good at them." He's talking about the lyrics or the limericks that the
Oh, yeah.
guards would do. I don't particularly like losing. Well, you lose Feyre later on, and he does not handle that well.
Oh, okay.
We learn within the first 20 chapters who this guy is. And I think it's funny because I've always thought like maybe he does love her. Maybe he starts to begrudgingly Beauty and the Beast love her, where I always think of him being the Beast and the scene from Disney's Beauty and the Beast going, but she's being so difficult. This is all on her. I'm trying. But as I'm rereading this and I'm looking at this, one of the theories that I'm putting out for these 5 chapters is he creating a false romance to break the curse? And is he begrudgingly courting her? And the 2 points of evidence just in these 2 chapters, I would have to go back and look, is before they go to the pond, which I hope we talk about,
Oh, it's
we
there.
see him and Lucien arguing, and Lucien walks by and doesn't talk to her. And then when
Mhm.
the 3 of them, why are they 3 there? The 3 of them are at the pond on page 157. She
I
hears
know.
them whispering, and then Tamlin sits next to her on the ground, on the grass, tense, and she makes a point not to look at him. They're in this most beautiful place from his childhood, and there is so much tension, and she is trying to actively not acknowledge it. It's not there. I'm in this beautiful place. I think he is trying to force this relationship, and because again, this is from her point of view. So we are only seeing what she is allowed to see. And also, we learn in these chapters that he can glamour people's memories, which, how is that similar to the Diamante of Reese? But is he changing her memories? Is he doing anything to her mind while she's with them in the night court or the spring court? Go for your pen.
So, this is a whole separate point for me, but like I said, these things are overlapping that I thought this was
Right.
going to be a really hard chapter chunk to just talk about specific things. Like, there are things that I have written down that I know we're going to miss because it's so broad. But I'll just jump here. Page 157, as you referenced. First of all, why is the Starlight Pond in the spring court?
Why is it in the spring court?
Is this world building? Or is it purposeful and we don't know the reason yet? My thought, it has something to do with Reese's mother or sister. Did one of Tamlin's bros crush on her or someone else from either further back in Reese's line? Also, why the F did Lucien go? Evidence that it is supposed to be a romantic gesture by rushed whispers were exchanged behind me, and then he sits down behind her, and Tamlin's jaw is clenched as he stared forward. It's just so awkward that Lucien is here. Is Lucien here to make sure that Tamlin doesn't go full beast mode because he's so angry at the humans that he also has issues with his brother, and everything is so tangled and knotted and hard to figure out that this Starlight Pond was put here in the spring court and he knows why and doesn't tell Feyre.
And that's the thing. We never learn anything about Tamlin's brothers other than I think what we learn about in this book as opposed to the other ones. I've often heard, was it Tamlin who was with Reese's sister? Was it one of his brothers? That would be wild. But also, why is Lucien there? Is he like some sort of chaperone? Because he's also just a bit of a joke. We learned this Glen is wherever they are. Feyre says, "Where are we?" And Tamlin says, "It's just a glen." And Lucien snorts and laughs, which means this is not just a glen. This is a place.
But he also does say, this is one of my favorite haunts as a child, or one of my
Right.
favorite haunts when I was younger. Did he like someone, AKA
Mhm.
Reese's sister? And now this pond is here as like a memento, a memory. What is that when
Right.
they put like a shrine somewhere? A shrine to her.
Yeah. Oh, what does it mean that when they drink from the pond, it is supposed to make them happy for the rest of their lives?
And
And neither of them does it.
she says, I don't know if that would be enough. And he said, well, what would be enough? Like,
Right.
it's like he's trying to force this. This isn't going to work. So I better ask her, well, what would make it enough so I can make this work so we can get our magic back?
But then on page 172, they're talking and she's like, why do you even like me? And he describes why he likes her. And it is essentially because she's human and she's fragile and she can experience all of these things, all of these emotions in a short amount of time. And all I could think when I was reading these chapters was this is the vampire trope romance. This vampire who is locked into eternity and is thinking, but you experience life in 50 years, in 70 years, in 80 years, and I have hundreds. That that is not love.
He says that when they are in the art gallery, and there's a quote that's like, she has to wipe the moisture away from her face as she's looking at all the beautiful art. That's when he says that quote.
Right. And that was when I thought, you don't even realize that humans can appreciate art. That's a red flag. But I'm going to tell you two cringeworthy things that happen in this 5-chapter chunk. First, ladies, if a man comes to you writing lyrics or limericks or poems, get out. Get out while you can. If a man comes to you and says, I'm a pretty good fiddle player, get out.
He's good with his
Uh,
fingers.
no, I want a guitar player. A fiddle player? You get yourself a guitar player or a drummer. You do not get yourself a fiddle player. Girl. I literally have on here cringe alert, poems, fiddle. We're done. My last thing on Tamlin is 180. We hear once again he has a heart of stone. So this is the second reference.
Anyone who's fluent with literature, or like me, studied literature like you, knows that historically in Elizabethan times, especially Shakespeare, there is a lot of wooing of women that goes with poetry, writing songs, and wooing a woman in that way. And so if you think about that one movie, I can't remember what his name is. He has like the radio, the big boom box on his shoulder. He has an older sister with dark hair. I can't remember what her name is, but
Say
he like
anything with John Cusack?
John Cusack and Joan Cusack. Yes, that's the one. It is like a retelling of this older story. Cyrano de Bergerac, I think is his
Mhm.
name, is the character. And he like woos this woman by, Romeo and Juliet being down here, throwing the rocks up at the window and getting her attention. And so I think that's where the limericks come in. It's historical wooing a woman.
It is. And I think today you get people who are heavily involved in the arts and they will be writing songs. They will be performing for one another. I think it is romantic, but we've established he is not an artist. He's a warrior. We've established she's not an artist. She's a warrior. And I think this is a really great segue into what we learn about Feyre. Do you have what are your thoughts about her on these chapters?
I just have one more thing to say about all the killing and the death. It's at the very
Mhm.
beginning of our chapters at page 139. Alice says, "You're lucky that the cereal was in a good mood because you would have deserved the death that he would have given you." And I don't know exactly what that means coming from Alice. She also has all this pre-baggage of her sister and her sister's mate dying and her having to raise their children. And that probably doesn't play too much in the Tamlin or Lucian's background, but it plays into what Feyre is experiencing now. I don't know why she says a lot of the things that she says at the beginning. The less you know, the better. She says that to
Yes.
Feyre. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with this death, this Beauty and the Beast wooing plot. I feel like Alice is so in the background, but is contributing just these little perfect bits of information that apparently on read 3, I still haven't picked up on exactly how this all ties together. But do you have any ideas about that as we're moving forward into Feyre?
So let's talk about Alice then for just a couple minutes. The first is it's really interesting that she is the one who says, "You don't deal with this. Only Lord Tamlin can fix this." But it's not just Lord Tamlin. It is the curse. There has to be a human who will come to them with hate in her heart and save them. But also, we learn from Alice, this refers back to last episode, Alice is the one who reveals that the cloak is the way to get the Suriel. What does Alice know that Lucien doesn't know? But
That's what I said
also,
last episode. Why didn't Lucien tell her that?
right, does he not know? But also, she says the Suriel was in a good mood or a benevolent mood. He would have killed you. She catches the Suriel, like, as she says in this chapter, is it hard? She does it every book. She does it in the next book to save Reese. She does it in the book after that to help them during the war. The Suriel is like waiting for her. It's really interesting. I've often wondered about the relationship between Feyre and the Suriel, and I am developing a theory about that. But it's really interesting that Alice is like, how could you go after the Suriel? How could you this?
Yeah, he wasn't mad at all. He was joking with her when they met.
Mhm. And he told her, he's like, what do you want to know? Do you know you're in the Spring Court? Do you know he's the High Lord? You tell me. You have to ask me the questions, but I will tell you everything. He is not making this hard. Free me. You are doing more than my brethren would have done. It's just their relationship is very interesting.
I want to point this out. Tamlin mentions that uh, Lucien revealed one of the Fae's closely guarded secrets when he told her how to catch the Suriel. So does Alice. She actually mentions the robe, not the cloak, but same difference. I've mentioned it every single episode. Boy, they cannot keep secrets. I mean, to save
Mhm.
their life. Literally.
So agreed. They cannot lie. They cannot keep secrets. But I think
Or they can lie.
this they can lie, but they cannot
Right.
keep secrets. But this goes back to Tamlin saying, "We never willingly lied to you." One of the traditions when you're dealing with the Fae is that
Mhm.
you are very particular about your language. It is very specific. I think that they know the letter of this law. They know the letter of this curse. They've known it for 50 years and they are trying to give the information. That is why they told Feyre chapters ago, pay attention. We know you can eavesdrop. Pay attention. He has a heart of stone. His heart cannot be broken. Do it. Go for your pen.
Lucien leans back in his chair and he smiles and he's like, we can lie. We find it to be an art. That's what you're talking
Mhm.
about.
Yes, it is an art for them. And you think that this human has been I mean, this again goes back to that knowledge versus reality versus everything. And now something has changed where Alice is just giving her information. Lucien is just giving her information. This is the first time we see them actively being like, yeah, we can lie. Yeah, iron doesn't hurt us. Tell us more. What do you want to know? We'll tell you whatever. It's Tamlin who stops it where he's like, "These are our secrets."
Um, Getting a little bit more into Feyre as we kind of started this whole jaunt that
Mhm.
we've
Sure.
gone off on a tangent. I want to know what you think about where she's at now. So we're still confused. Do we think Tamlin is actually getting into this, or do we think they are the best liars ever? And here's a few sentences of evidence. He glamours and warns her family and makes a point to tell her about it. He gets her the paint and supplies and welcomes her to paint anywhere she wants, welcomes her, please visit the art gallery anytime you want. He writes the love poems. And then there's a lot of asking her questions about herself, which is where this overlies about the character backstories. He specifically was like, hey, who taught you how to swim? Hey, how did your family lose their fortune? he's kissing her hands and healing the wounds from where they're out in the garden that one night and the thorns cut her hands. He's acting super weird when Lucien goes with them to the Starlight Pond. Also, when he goes to Calanmai, his claws are almost out. We know. We've read enough romantasy and enough Fae books. The Fae, Tamlin, sometimes really end up falling in love with somebody. There's also where he walks out to Calanmai, and at one point, he acts really tense, and he's like, "Stay in your room." This Feyre-Tamlin romance is so convincing. It's really hard to distinguish truth from lie. Go.
Well, so we're going to hold off on Feyre for a little bit because I'm going to address what you've just brought up. But when he goes out and he says, stay in your room, stay in the house, don't come out. If you see any Fae, ignore them and walk away. I think this is because we have the Ator come and say, well, we know you've been sending people through the divider and we know nothing's come from that. But something has come from that. They have a human. And we know that these dark fae, or these fae who are very scary to Feyre, meet up with her. That's when she meets the most beautiful man in the world. I hope he comes back into the series because he seems beautiful. But I think this is him saying, no, you are my plan B. My plan A is I'm trying to figure this out on my own. My plan B is you're the human who I've brought over here who is going to fix this. And I think he is doing this. I don't think it is love. I think this is, again, he doesn't like to lose. He's caught her, but he's also trying to do the best he can to convince her of love. Go for your pen.
If we are going with the theory that this is still all super faked by Tamlin and Lucien, and then take into the fan fave theory that Lucien can recognize mating bonds, does Lucien recognize the mating bond between Feyre and Rhys and tell Tamlin? And Tamlin is afraid that Amarantha is going to send Rhys to Calanmai, and it's not the Ator that he's afraid of. He's afraid of Feyre running into Rhys and that mating bond clicking into place.
I am going to add on to this question. One of my theories is, does Feyre feel the mating bond as a human?
Yes, yes, because she keeps saying, those drums are calling me. Like, I need to go out there.
More
I'm
than that,
compelled. Like,
on page 183, there was a string tied to my gut that pulled me towards those
yes,
hills,
yes.
commanding me to go to hear the fairy drums. On page 184, go, that voice said, tugging at me. Is it tugging her to the drums, or is it tugging her to her mate, Rhysand, who is waiting in the shadows? So good.
I have all of that highlighted too. It's
Like,
so good.
it's a fact because we know that, I think it's in Silver Flames, the way the mating bond is described is it is a string. It is the bond that connects them. And I think it's something like Cassian is the one who's like, he felt the string pull. There is a string that tied to my gut and pulled me towards those hills.
And I feel like it's less of a string and more like a rubber band. Like the rubber band always wants to shrink back, and it's trying to get Feyre and Rhys as close as possible. That's literally one of my next points. I'm glad we addressed it now, so I don't have to talk about it later.
Okay, I'm just going to take us to a different topic. I want to talk about Feyre, but I have a theory about Feyre. I think Feyre has the gift of sight. I think, so on page 145, she has the nightmare of the faceless woman who tries to kill her and demands her name.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Amarantha? Because we know Amarantha is constantly saying, what is your name?
Mm-hmm.
I need the name of this human. But then
Claire Bador.
Right, that's her fake name. That's her Vegas name.
Her show name.
So we have the scene in chapter 19, I think it is, where she is with Tamlin and he's like, "You have to hide." So she hides behind the fountain or around it, and she hears a conversation between Lucien and Tamlin, and at first she thinks that they're having a joke on her because the two of them are talking, but then there is a third voice that is invisible to her. She cannot see what this fairy looks like, and it's the one who we learn is Amarantha's soldier who's coming and telling Tamlin, "Well, you're real lucky that nothing's happened because you've been sending these people through." On page 182, which is the beginning of chapter 20, she paints the Ator. She paints
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fairy that she could not see.
Mm-hmm.
How does she know what to paint?
I wonder
I
that too.
I think that she has sight. I wonder if this is part of the Archeron gifts. It's the same gift that Elaine gets later on. Elaine's is just more developed. Yeah, I think that Feyre has the gift of sight, and I want to pay attention to what she sees later on. I want to talk about Feyre now that we've kind of worked our way down to her. I want to talk about the fact that this person who was so focused on her mother's vow purposely states a lie, purposely states a broken vow. That is to the Fae that comes in with his wings ripped off. I want to talk about on page 145, my vow was fulfilled, my task complete, what was left for me. This is, I think, the final change for her. We've seen it happening for the past few chapters. This is the point where now she's, what else is there for me? I want to talk about her self loathing in these chapters. We've had self deprecating Feyre, ignorant human. This is the one where my family probably thinks I'm dead. My family doesn't even remember me. Why are you thinking that? How low do you think of yourself and how low do you think of your family
Well,
that
I
they're
just
going
want to
to
interject here real quick.
Mhm.
Last week, you talked about how she couldn't decide between, well, you and I couldn't decide between if when she saw her sisters crying, it was because she was happy that they were not
Mhm.
getting to eat, or if it's because she wanted to see them crying because they missed her.
Right. I I also think it's important to note on page 152, she wonders how long it takes for a soul to leave the body. I don't know if this is foreshadowing or not, but her soul does not leave this earth because it is tied to Reese because of the promise, the vow that they make. And she sees her body broken through his eyes. Her soul would have left seconds, minutes before, but because of that bond, it does not. I just think
Or
it's
is it because
interesting.
she's a seer?
Or is it because she's a seer? But it's interesting that that's something that she brings up. And then again, she thinks about the High Lady. She on page
Mhm.
181, it's a second reference to this High Lady idea.
Yeah.
It's not just a one-off. But I think the most important line for her, arguably in the book thus far, but definitely within these 5 chapters, is on page 171. I'd let him change me. She is no longer the hunter of page 1, and that is because of Tamlin. She does not have a purpose, she does not have a goal, and now she's floundering. She should be trying to get away. She should be trying, she's no longer making a map of how to get out of this place. Now she's just going and painting and going on walks. She is a different woman than she was, 110 pages ago? This is a really big Feyre chapter or chunk.
Are you talking about where on 171 she says, "I'd let him erase me. He'd offer me paints and the space and time to practice."
Mhm.
he'd shown me pools of starlight. Like,
Mhm.
she's willing to say, "All right, I'm gonna be pliable. Being breakable is gonna break me. I'm ready to be pliable."
I don't think it's I'm going to. I think it's she was a defined person before. She was the caregiver. She was the breadwinner. She was the one responsible for the money. She was the one who was going to say, "No, you cannot marry that person. No, you cannot do this thing." And now, what is she doing? Nothing. She's
She's
painting.
not asking
She's
questions.
she's not asking questions. And again, she's not even creating her maps anymore. She the human woman who was brought into Perithian is no longer the same woman who is here right now. Go for your pen.
Just the page before on 170, she literally says, "I'd stopped asking questions, just as the Suriel had ordered, like a stupid, useless,
Mhm,
obedient human."
mhm. But what frustrates me in that same paragraph is she says, "And Tamlin let me forget them." You don't get to put the blame on Tamlin, sister. You have done this. You've accepted it. He's offered it to you. And
There's
he
a
didn't.
passage ago that says weeks had passed at the beginning,
Mhm.
like one of the first couple paragraphs of one of the chapters. I think
Right.
it's right after she gets her paints. And she just says, like, weeks passed.
Mhm. Right. I'm so torn because it is this sense of I'd let him erase me. That terminology I'm okay with because you're giving in. And Tamlin had let me forget them. You are putting the blame on him. You don't get to say, he made me or let me do this thing. You let yourself do this thing. But also, you're trying to figure out who you are. You are a 19-year-old girl trying to figure out who you are. And there's a 500-year-old Fae sitting there going, I know how to do this.
We are still in identity crisis mode.
Yes, I want to know if we ever get out of it.
There's a few smaller, more specific things, another foreshadowing, the thing about the promises, a couple quick little encyclopedia things. But the one
Hmm.
topic that we didn't talk about that's a major topic that was the third topic of my little
Outline.
statement before you got into the details was I wanted to talk about the blight.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So we learn a lot of the symptoms of the blight, but not really the cause. Why do you think it is that Feyre doesn't ask? The
Oh,
evidence of everything that we learn that she hears, that she notices and chooses not to ask about. She mentions the King of Hybern and gets cut off by Alice. Again, that quote, "The less you know, the better." Feyre's dream with the tearing at her throat and the pale woman asking her name. She mentions the high fae are unable to keep their courts in order. They're allowing bad fairies to roam around. The fairy who gets their wings ripped off, and Tamlin says, "No, I can't heal him because of my decreased power now."
but I could
Feyre,
have before.
I could have before. She starts entering into this I regret killing Andress phase. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of that has to do with learning about the human and Fey war. But then there's also the conversation with the adder. What will happen if they don't follow the terms of, and then hyphen, and then blank, and then nothing else? He gets cut off. And then the last thing, Tamlin says to her, "There's going to be time for answers someday. It's not now, but when the time is right, we'll get there." How does this person hear all of these symptoms of this blight and not want say, "Hey, I have a question. Can I hear a little bit more about this? Where did this start?" Is that her being young, to your point that you just mentioned, that like she's 19 years old, she's trying to figure herself out? These are so obvious things that the Fae are willing to talk about, and we've talked about her eavesdropping and people telling her, pay attention. Why doesn't she ask any leading questions that they could sidestep around and still give her information without giving her information?
Do you think the reason she does not ask is because she is around someone who is so volatile, someone who every time she does something wrong or someone else does something wrong, he pulls his claws out. He is threatening her, even in these ones where he's like, just stay in the house, just do this. It's almost like he's being kind and nice when it's on his terms, but when she starts pushing back, why do I have to stay in the house for this? You're saying you said I could do whatever I wanted. No, you got to stay in the house. Do you think she's not asking questions about the blight because of how volatile Tamlin is?
But then she's trying to navigate through this first relationship where this guy is feeling so much for her. And so she's like, oh, is this what true love feels like? I really, really don't know the answer to this question, but I think it begs to be asked.
I have one more big thing, medium thing I wanted to talk about, and one more little thing. So I'll talk about the little thing is we learn a little bit more about the Fae and their relationship with children and how rare they are. And we learn this from Alice, but also what does this mean when a High Lord's 2 out of 3 children are killed, or 2 out of 7 children are killed, or when Alice's sister has 2 children within 5 years, or Feyre, who is newly made Fae within a year, is
Gets
pregnant.
pregnant.
There's a lot of kid talk around in these 3
I've
books.
It is the last section that we read. It would be chapters 16 through 20, where I have a point. Oh, I just accidentally turned to it so easy. I don't know if you can see it, but it's on 140, last chapters. Why does Feyre get pregnant so easy? Is it because how Alice says, maybe people like you who are so fast growing, she dies, turns into a Fae? That crosses over into why they get pregnant so fast? Or I don't know. What else theories do you have about that?
So if we take that, then what I wanna see is Nesta pregnant in the next book
This is your
because she
most hated trope. Why do you wanna see this? I know you,
because
and this is your most hated trope is when
it
people
is.
get
I hate
pregnant.
pregnancy. But if we are saying that the reason Feyre gets pregnant so fast is because she's human, who's turned into a Fae, and because she grows so fast, then Nesta would have to do the same because she is also human who has become a Fae. And well, we'll get to that in Silver Flames. But I'm really curious about this relationship with the Fae and children. And if I recall, in these 3 books, which I kind of want to keep my focus on, the Winter Court takes in all of the orphans who have been orphaned because of the blight. Like children are a big thing. And when Lucien goes to the Night Court, the first thing he sees is there are children playing in the streets.
Mm.
Children and Fae are a big deal here.
What takes them so long to procreate? Yeah, it makes sense that it's,
Well, it's
on site for him.
also
Oh,
Alice is saying that they aren't adult until they're 75. Like that's when they're first adult. Go for your pen.
I think now that I just said that out loud, the part about Lucian saying there's so many children playing in the street, maybe one, it is referencing how many children they have. Is that meaning that so many people are happy in this court that they get to have the opportunity to find their mates and not just be married off? Or is
Oh.
it how happy are these children that they're not all killing each other and maybe this is the way you run a civilized society?
I think the answer is yes. It is yes to
Yes.
both of them. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up was we've kind of touched on it throughout this episode, but the significance and the importance of knowledge of names. We don't learn Tamlin's name for 7 chapters. We don't learn Feyre's name until the 2nd chapter. And when she's in Prythian, she does not want to tell them her name. It's Tamlin who reveals her name. And in these chapters, the faceless woman is asking her name, and she still
Yeah.
can't give it because to give it would be to kill herself. She dies as she's trying to say it. It's just really interesting. And it's what Rhys asks when he sees her, "What is your name?" That's next, I think that's next episode. I don't know. We haven't gotten there in this book.
How self-fulfilling prophecy is it that the pale woman, whatever, keeps asking her name, but before she asks her name, she claws her throat out, so Feyre's unable
Mhm.
to speak in the dream.
Yeah.
If she wants to know her name, why is she clawing her throat out if she wants her to speak?
Right. Mhm. Um, Also kind of going with names, we don't ever, to my knowledge, learn her father's name, but she refers to him as the Prince of Merchants, and Nesta will refer to him as the Prince of Merchants. It's weird that neither of them says, "My dad, Bob, the Prince of Merchants." Go.
Foreshadowing page 145. Feyre doesn't believe her dad would come for her. That's partly why he glamored her. He was worried about him not just coming for her, but bringing other people. And Tamlin's like, I worry about your dad and also all of these other humans that would then fall because they've crossed the wall and violated the treaty. But is this some foreshadowing that, yes, he would have come? And that is kind of
Mhm.
some foreshadowing to Aqua, A Court of Wings and Ruin, where he does come, and what does he come as? A dude sailing a bunch of ships.
But I was gonna say, but also, why is Tamlin the one who says, "Yeah, I know he's gonna come"? What does Tamlin know that we don't know and Feyre doesn't know?
Okay, there's only
Um,
4 things that I have left, but they're super small. So if you have anything bigger, go.
I have 2 small foreshadowings. The first one is 163, where she talks about how she learned about swimming. I just think it's really interesting because water and swimming become um, really important to Feyre throughout the series. This is when she explains how she learned how to swim, and she has to swim when she's with Amren in the summer court, but also she's just constantly kind of adjacent to water. And also, page 188. There
Oh,
you
I'm
are.
here. I'm on
I
page
see what came
188
for you.
already.
This is our foreshadowing, but it's not for Feyre. This is
I'm literally here already.
it's it's the line that launched the thousand ships, if you will. This
I will.
is because he has been looking for her for 500 years. He has been looking for her, and he has been dreaming about her. And this is one of those few foreshadowings where it's not a foreshadowing so much as I see what you're doing in the future. This is, no, look in the past. I've been looking for you. It's so good.
Check that off. We got
I
there.
have one last fun question that I want to ask after we finish the episode. So I want to talk about everything else you've got.
Tamlin's callous fingers referenced twice in this
Oh,
section. More calluses. It's when he's like touching her hand and she can feel the calluses on his fingers.
I missed that.
So much to unravel there in the future.
Hmm.
And it's going to be in the 3rd series that we review because that's when the biggest calluses marks come in, if you know what I'm referring to.
No, I
Throne
don't.
of Glass calluses.
Oh, yeah.
TBD. Doesn't matter.
Stay
Page
tuned.
150, page 185 confirms Kat's belief that the shimmering and the blurring in our vision is magic. Your point got confirmed there. It's when they are at Calanmai, I think, and she's like looking around and she can't focus on people's faces,
She
but she
can't
can
see
kind of see
anyone.
them more out of the side of her eye. And she's like,
Mhm.
oh, this has to be the magic. The last thing is something that we touched on but didn't get into. Promises. Feyre is the one who makes a false promise to the dying fairy on, I want to get there, it's page 152. And she says,
States a broken vow.
yeah, the first false vow I'd ever sworn. Again, important promises to her. But then Lucien says to Feyre that he's the one who didn't follow through on his
Mhm.
promise to save Feyre from the Suriel. It is on page 166.
Oh,
I
yes, I
still
apologize,
broke my word.
166.
So we have more interesting promises and people breaking promises. You were right when you said when we started reading this, let's keep track of promises. I didn't realize how much promises are brought up. It's kind of a big
They're
deal.
big. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a big deal. Um, do you have anything else?
No, I'm done. Okay, Kat, I think that finishes out the episode. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
Nope. I think that gets everything I wanted to talk about done.
Then next week we will be reading chapters 21 through 25 of Akatar. Spoiler, we get into some serious romance between Tamlin and Feyre. Gets a little hot and heavy. Not hot and heavy for spicy romance, but hot and heavy for first book of Avatar. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe below wherever you get your podcasts. We can also be found on Instagram at SJ Masterclass and by email at sjmasterclass, SJMAASTERCLASS at Gmail. And we want to hear from you. What did you think of this episode? What do you think about our thoughts? Let us know in the comments. What else do you want to hear about that we are not talking about? I'd ask you if you want to go edit and grab some margs, but you are 1,500 miles away right now. So I guess I'll just say I'll see you when you get home.
I'm in a different time zone. So yes, I will see you when I get home, and well, we'll see you on Wednesday morning.
I will definitely see you on Wednesday morning. We will make a scene like we always do.
Always. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.